So on the eve of the third anniversary of January 6th, we wanted to talk to some of the heroes of that day who helped to save our democracy. They are former members of the Capitol Hill Police and D.C. Metro Police, part of the law enforcement teams that defended the Capitol that day, and the lawmakers inside from the rioters who violently stormed the building January 6, 2021, following a Trump rally. Joining us now, former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. He's the author of the book Standing My Ground. Former D.C. Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone. His book on the January 6th insurrection is titled Hold the Line. And former Capitol Police Officer Aquilino Gonell. He's the author of the book American Shield, available now in both English and Spanish. Gentlemen, good morning to all three of you. Thank you for being with us again. Three gentlemen and three heroes we've gotten to know well over the last 3 years. And Officer Dunn, I'll start with you and just get your reflections on where we are 3 years on now. This day, 3 years ago, you thought you had not routine, you had a big rally and a group of people there, but you never could have anticipated what was going to happen, and your life is so different, obviously, since then. What are you feeling as we approach this anniversary?
Good morning, Willie. Morning, guys. Good to see y'all. Good to be here with everybody. Man, I never anticipated that my career would take the turn that it has now, and that I am in this space that I am now. I never thought that I'd be on a morning show with the title former Capitol Police Officer attached to it. But, you know, it's a little heartbreaking a little bit. One, for selfish personal reasons, but also for the direction that our country is headed in. I mean, who would have ever thought that, you know, like you said, we thought it was a normal protest that we've dealt with hundreds of times, thousands of times at the Capitol, people expressing their First Amendment right. We never thought, earlier you said, what we debate, is this an insurrection? The definition of an insurrection is a violent uprising against the U.S. government or against a government. And that's exactly what happened that day. So it's important for all of us, and I'm glad that my fellow officers, former officers, are here with me and standing up and pushing back against that narrative that a lot of people on the right are trying to rewrite, erase, or completely just whitewash it.
So, Officer Fanone, you know, it's obviously been shocking to a lot of us, to a lot of Americans who agree, the vast majority, we should point out, agree January 6th was a terrible day. We believe what we saw with our eyes that day, either in person for many people or on television. But also this narrative that's taken hold in certain quarters among Trump supporters in particular, that it actually wasn't what we saw that day. That's the one side of it. The other side of it is you've had more than 1,200 people arrested, the head of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers going to jail for a very long time. More convictions to come. Prosecutors say they're only about halfway done with the people they want to find. So how do you feel 3 years on after January 6, 2021?
I mean, when you mention all those investigations, you know, the Department of Justice undertaking and, you know, prosecuting more than 1,200 Americans for their actions on January 6th. States now starting to debate and make an effort to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. You know, all of those things I think are a good start and necessary. I don't want to put too much stock into any one institution. I think it's an all-hands-on-deck effort to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't assume the presidency in 2024. We all know what that's going to look like. He's told us as much. But I also, you know, I've got to point out some of the disappointments that I've had over the past 3 years. And that's, where is the outrage on behalf of the current administration? You know, I give credit, Joe Biden has given some fiery speeches with regards to MAGA and its effort to overturn a free and fair election. But that's something that this country needs to hear every single day, specifically younger people, young voters. When I go out and talk to them, they seem completely disillusioned with the political process. And I think a lot of the problems that President Biden is dealing with now, the image problems, stem from being too soft. You know, I feel like Biden can be outraged, he can express anger without coming across as unhinged, like Donald Trump. And I would like to see him fight for our democracy with the same tenacity that Donald Trump fights to destroy it.
And you may hear some of that from the president today in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, as he kind of launches that side of the campaign, which is this idea of defending our democracy. And Sergeant Gonell, obviously we've talked to you many times, always grateful for your time, talking about the injuries you suffered that day, how it changed the course of your career, effectively forced you out of your job because of what happened to you that day. What are your reflections 3 years after January 6th?
3 years. Thank you for having me on your show. 3 years ago, I was doing my normal jobs, and unfortunately, that tragic day ended my career due to the injuries that I sustained, both physical and mental as well. Right now, I'm focused on myself and my family. I have been able to overcome a lot of the adversities that came about with the physical therapy and whatnot. It's having that separation in time away from the Capitol and not dealing with protecting the same people who are now saying that nothing happened on January 6th allowed me to heal. And one issue that I do have is with the new Speaker of the House. He claims to be on the side of law enforcement officers. He claimed to be the party of the law and order. And then a couple of weeks ago, he said in the same sentence, we want transparency and blurring out the faces of the rioters, the same people who were hunting them down room by room and injure many of my colleagues, including us three who are here. So they are not the party of rule of law, and whatever they said is just for political points. But they don't believe it. They don't act on it the way they say they do, and that's reflected on their records.
Aquilina Gonell and Michael Fanone, I have a question for both of you. Sergeant Gonell, you have driven to the federal courthouse in D.C. To testify at trials, to victim impact statements, to show support for other officers who were victims. There are like 1,200 cases now. You've been at 20 sentencings at least, including 4 cases where defendants were convicted of violently assaulting you. There are many who are serving time for crimes committed during this insurrection, violent crimes, and yet former President Donald Trump labeled them as hostages in a speech recently. I'd like to hear from both of you just what your reaction is to that. And Aquilina Gonell, how about you go first?
Well, as I was mentioning, these are the people that say that they are pro-law enforcement and support the police. I was assaulted by more than 40 people on January 6th. It's recorded, it's on video, it's on pictures. So those are the ones that I mainly go to the court to give my statement and also to testify. Just right before Christmas, one writer who assaulted me and injured my hand, he tried to dissuade the judge pretending that he didn't assault me when it was clearly on video. These are violent people. Whether they were violent before January 6th, I don't care. Whether they were good people or not, they did it on January 6th. They were showing me who they were. And that's the reason why I go to the court to hold them accountable. Because whenever they get in front of the judge and ask for leniency because they have a family, because they have a kid, because they're too old, because they're too frail, because they have PTSD, because they are former member of the military and a veteran like myself, well, they should have thought about those things before they committed those crimes, before they assaulted me and my colleagues. I took the same oath that they did, and yet that did not make me remove myself from doing my duty and my job on January 6th. And that's the reason why I continue to go to court and hold those people accountable. And I have a couple of trial cases that I'll be in the coming months, I'll be in court as well, so doing those things.
Michael Fanone, your take on former President Trump calling these criminals, convicted criminals, hostages?
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. You know, the individuals that stormed the Capitol on January 6th attacked law enforcement in an effort to stop the certification of the election. You know, those people, that's Donald Trump's core group of supporters. I don't know whether or not he actually believes that they're hostages or even that, you know, he cares for them outside of the fact that he knows they'll vote for him if he says things like that. I mean, it just comes back to the fact that, you know, their support for Donald Trump is based on lies. And so Donald Trump has to continue to perpetuate those lies in order to maintain that level of support.
And another thing.
Go ahead, Aquilino.
Another thing is, like, if he uses those connotations and call them patriot hostages, you know, tourists, peaceful protesters, if there are those things, according to him, then what does that make us, the police officers? Are we the sequesters?
Mm-hmm.
Are we the hostage takers? We were the one defending the Capitol on January 6th, not the other way around. And he's only accusing other people and making those assumptions because he never had done any sacrifice for anyone else but himself.
Former D.C. Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone and former Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. Thank you both very much for coming on the show this morning, and thank you for your service.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
Harry Dunn, I know you started off by saying you're surprised to be calling yourself a former Capitol Police officer. You're also author of Standing My Ground, a book. And we're keeping you on for a few more minutes because you have an announcement to make right here on Morning Joe. What is it?
Yeah, you know, so it's so interesting, like this whole process that where January 6th has taken this country and has taken me personally. And one of the things that I've always said and tried to live by is a saying that says, until there's nothing that can be done, there's always something that can be done. And I feel like I've run my race with the Capitol Police and the last 15 plus years of public service in that capacity. So here right now, I'm here to announce my candidacy for Congress in Maryland's 3rd District. And you know, I just want to continue. What better way than to continue fighting for the people of Maryland, for the people of the United States, and to continue to defend democracy. Because I think on January 6th, it exposed, one, how weak and fragile that it is. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, it may sound scary, but we are one election away from the extinction of democracy as we know it. I mean, Donald Trump said it himself that he is ready to be a dictator. And, you know, a lot of his supporters will sit there and say, oh, he's just joking. But how many times has he said the things that we thought were jokes that he actually did and took them seriously? So right now I'm here to announce my candidacy to fight back and be able to push back against the people in Congress right now that I spent the last 15 years of my life protecting. And I want to serve as their equal, as their colleague. I want a voice at the table, and I'm ready to for that challenge. So you can find out more information about that at harrydunforcongress.com.
Former Capitol Police officer, now officially a candidate for Congress in Maryland, Harry Dunn. Thank you very much. And we will be talking to you again soon as a candidate. Thank you. Coming up.